If you were to ask the United Earth Defense Force, which of their interstellar outposts was most likely to save humanity from an alien invasion, Outpost Epsilon-12 wouldn't just be at the bottom of the list, it wouldn't even make the footnotes. Hell, most UEDF administrators needed to be reminded it existed, usually with a memo, sometimes 3. Commander Tuck Hazard knew this better than anyone, as he stared at the colony's so-called command center, a repurposed storage closet, with monitors that occasionally flickered to life when they felt particularly generous. "Computer, give me status report," Tuck ordered, rubbing his temples. The computer, a third-hand system that had been obsolete before Tuck was born, wheezed to life. "Status report for Outpost Epsilon-12. Oxygen levels, a DQ. Food supplies, a DQ. Morale, depressing. Chance of promotion for current personnel, calculations indicate somewhere between 0 and please stop asking." "I didn't ask for a promotion assessment," Tuck muttered. "You were thinking it very loudly, Commander." Tuck kicked the console, which was the standard method of system maintenance on Epsilon-12. The screen flickered once before displaying the actual status report, which wasn't much more encouraging. Outpost Epsilon-12 orbited a dreary moon on the outer edge of what Earth's astronomers generously called strategically valuable space. In reality, it was positioned so far from anything remotely interesting that its primary purpose seemed to be giving the UEDF somewhere to send personnel who had royally pissed off their superiors. Tuck was still trying to figure out what he'd done to deserve this posting. His best guess was that sleeping with Admiral Chen's daughter hadn't been his brightest career move, especially since he didn't know she was the Admiral's daughter until the transfer papers arrived the very next morning. Along with a personal note that simply read, "Enjoy the view from Epsilon-12. I hear the absolutely nothing is beautiful this time of year." The outpost itself was a marvel of cost-cutting engineering. Originally designed to house 20 personnel, budget cuts had reduced the structure to a misshapen collection of modular units that could generously accommodate 8 humans, provided they didn't all breathe at the same time. Further budget reductions had cut the assigned personnel to 4, which would have been spacious if 3/4 of the station wasn't perpetually malfunctioning. "Commander, we've got a situation in Section C," crackled a voice over the ancient intercom system. It belonged to engineer Milo Jenkins, though everyone called him Wrench because he could fix anything with one, usually by threatening to throw it at whatever was broken until the equipment cooperated out of sheer terror. "Define situation, Wrench," Tuck replied, already reaching for his emergency repair toolkit, a roll of duct tape and a prayer. "The food synthesizer is making everything taste like pickled beets again, including the coffee. Especially the coffee." Tuck sighed. "That's not a situation, that's Tuesday." "It's Friday, sir. Not according to our calendar system. The calendar system hasn't been right since 2238. "Exactly my point." Tuck made his way through the narrow corridor, ducking under a pipe that had been leaking the same drop of mysterious blue fluid for the past 3 years. The pipe had outlasted 4 repair attempts, and 2 engineers, and was now considered a permanent crew member with its own Christmas stocking. This was life on humanity's most pathetic outpost. The equipment was older than dirt, the supplies were whatever didn't fit on the more important colonies, and their distress beacon had once been tested only to discover it sent signals directly to a pizza delivery service on Earth's moon, rather than UEDF command. The truly ironic part, Epsilon-12 sat on top of the largest known deposit of quantum-stabilizing particles in the galaxy, not that anyone at UEDF headquarters seemed to remember or care. QSPs were theoretically valuable for advanced weaponry and instantaneous communication, but Earth's scientists hadn't quite figured out how to use them yet. So Epsilon-12's 4 crew members babysat an invaluable resource with equipment that belonged in a museum. Or a trash compactor. Probably the latter. One day, Tuck muttered to himself as he approached the galley where Wrench was disemboweling the food synthesizer, "An alien race is going to discover what we're sitting on, and they're going to laugh themselves to death when they see how we're guarding it." Little did Commander Tuck Hazard know how prophetic those words would be, or that one day was approximately 18 hours away. Morning briefings at Outpost Epsilon-12 were held around a table that was actually a repurposed airlock door balanced on empty supply crates. The crew called it the Round Table, partly because of its shape, but mostly because their collective sanity required some kind of ironic humor to survive. "All right, people," Commander Tuck began, clutching a mug of what the synthesizer claimed was coffee but tasted suspiciously like motor oil mixed with those ever-present pickled beets. "What fresh hell awaits us today?" Security Chief Danny Bulletproof, yes, that was her actual surname, and yes, she had heard every possible joke about it, flicked her holographic display to life. The display flickered ominously before stabilizing into a grainy image. "Perimeter sensors are operational," she reported, her perpetually stern expression somehow making the good news sound like a death sentence. Though operational is a generous term, they can detect objects larger than a small moon, provided those objects are kind enough to move very slowly and possibly announce themselves via formal written notice. Danny had been security chief for 3 years, during which time the most dangerous security threat had been a package of freeze-dried ice cream that had achieved sentience in Storage Bay 4. She still maintained a daily combat readiness routine that included 200 push-ups and tactical drills for scenarios ranging from hostile boarding to tentacled space monster in the ventilation system. The crew respected her dedication, even if they occasionally found her asleep in the corridor, weapon in hand, guarding against threats that would never come. "Any communications from command?" Tuck asked, turning to his communications officer. "Maxwell actually has no doctorate." Quinn looked up from his datapad with the expression of a man who had long ago accepted absurdity as his personal religion. "2 messages, sir. First, they've denied our request for updated navigation software. Again, the current software thinks Pluto is still a planet." Tuck groaned. "To be fair, sir, many of us are still emotionally attached to Pluto's planetary status," Quinn replied with a straight face. "The second message is even better. They're reallocating half our emergency power cells to Outpost Gamma 9. Gamma 9? That's an automated weather station," Wrench protested, spitting out a mouthful of beet-flavored coffee. "Apparently," Quinn continued, adjusting his glasses, which were held together with spot welding and optimism, "the weather station's pet rock collection requires climate control." Quinn had earned his nickname after a clerical error in the UEDF personnel database listed him as having 17 doctoral degrees. Rather than correct this obvious mistake, Command had assumed he was some kind of super genius and assigned him every scientific duty on Epsilon-12. His actual qualifications included a half-finished undergraduate degree in comparative literature and a talent for looking thoughtful while having absolutely no idea what he was doing. "What's the status on our secret project?" Tuck asked, lowering his voice unnecessarily. There was nobody to overhear them, and Command hadn't bothered to monitor their communications since the Great Bunny Slipper incident of 2239. Wrench's face lit up. "The still is coming along nicely, sir. I've repurposed parts from the backup oxygen scrubber." "The what from the what now?" Danny interrupted, her eyebrows achieving new heights of disapproval. "Relax, bulletproof," Wrench waved dismissively. "That scrubber hasn't worked since we got here. Besides, if we're going to survive another year on this floating garbage can, we're going to need something stronger than synthesized beet coffee." Milo Wrench Jenkins had been a prodigy at the academy, right up until he corrected his engineering professor's quantum flux calculations by illustrating the mistake with an elaborate diorama featuring the professor as a cartoon donkey. His subsequent assignment to Epsilon-12 had come with a personal note reading simply, "Have fun fixing toilets, smartass." The irony was that Wrench had turned out to be the perfect engineer for Epsilon-12. Where other engineers required proper parts and equipment, Wrench could make miracles happen with paper clips and chewing gum. His quarters resembled a mad scientist's laboratory crossed with a junkyard, and he routinely talked to the equipment as if it could understand him. Disturbingly, it often seemed to respond. "Speaking of things that shouldn't exist," Tuck said, "how's our unauthorized science experiment, Quinn?" Quinn glanced nervously at the storage closet that doubled as his laboratory. "The QSP sample is interesting. I've been running tests with our limited equipment, and it seems to react to, well, everything." "Define everything," Danny said, her hand instinctively moving to her sidearm, a habit whenever undefined threats were mentioned. "Radio waves, light, sound, that weird humming Wrench makes when he's thinking, it all causes the particles to dance, reshape?" "I don't have the proper terminology because, as we're all aware, I do not actually have 17 doctoral degrees." Tuck nodded thoughtfully. "Keep it quiet. If Command remembers what we're sitting on, they might actually send someone competent to replace us." "The horror," Wrench muttered, tightening a bolt on what appeared to be a still made from air filtration components and food synthesizer parts. The daily routine of Epsilon-12 continued as it always did, a delicate dance of crisis management, improvised repairs, and finding new ways to prevent terminal boredom. Danny patrolled the perimeter with military precision, despite nothing more threatening than space dust having approached in years. Wrench coaxed the life support systems into functioning for another day through a combination of technical genius and creative profanity. Quinn pretended to understand the scientific readings from their QSP sample while actually cataloging them into patterns that reminded him of ancient Earth poetry. And Commander Tuck Hazard filed his daily report to Command, a detailed account of absolutely nothing that nobody would ever read. As the artificial day cycle dimmed toward evening, the 4 of them gathered in the common area, a glorified hallway with cushions bolted to structural supports for their nightly ritual of guess what this food packet was supposed to be. A game that had become significantly more challenging since the synthesizer's beat obsession began. 10 credits says it was meant to be chicken parmesan, Wrench offered, poking at the purple-tinged substance on his plate. No bet, Quinn replied. I processed the original supply request. This was supposed to be ice cream. A companionable silence fell over the group as they contemplated the cosmic injustice that had landed 4 reasonably competent humans on humanity's least important outpost. The silence was broken only by the rhythmic dripping of the blue fluid pipe, and the occasional beep from Danny's security scanner, which she ran hourly, despite the fact that it couldn't detect anything smaller than a cruiser, unless said cruiser was directly docked with their airlock. None of them knew it, but this would be the last normal evening of their deeply abnormal lives. The Glarb were widely considered the middle management of conquering alien species. Not impressive enough to feature in interstellar history books, but competent enough to subjugate a small moon if nobody was paying attention. Their battle fleet, a collection of ships that looked like someone had asked a 5-year-old to draw spaceships and then built them exactly to those specifications, had been wandering the galaxy for decades looking for an easy conquest. Fleet Commander Zook stood on the bridge of the Glarb mothership, the inevitable victory which had already been renamed 6 times following several very inevitable defeats. He stared at the view screen with all 4 of his eyes, each blinking independently in what his species considered a display of tactical genius. This, he declared to his bridge crew, pointing one of his 7 fingers at the image of Outpost Epsilon-12, is humanity's most vital military installation. His intelligence officer, Lieutenant Clibb, shuffled nervously. Are you certain, Commander? Our scans indicate only 4 life forms and extremely outdated technology. Precisely, Zook exclaimed, slapping Clibb with his ceremonial conquest tentacle, a gesture that had long ago lost its dignity but was maintained for traditional reasons. It's clearly a clever disguise. Why else would they station such a small crew to guard their largest deposit of quantum-stabilizing particles? It must be their elite forces. Their technology must be so advanced it appears primitive to our sensors. The Glarb had discovered quantum-stabilizing particles only recently and had immediately recognized their military potential. With QSPs, they could finally upgrade their weapons beyond the current point and hope, targeting systems that had led to their most recent humiliating retreat from what turned out to be an uninhabited asteroid with an unusually reflective surface. We will capture this facility, Zook announced. Extract the humans' QSP secrets, and finally the galaxy will tremble at the mention of the Glarb. The bridge crew gave a half-hearted cheer. They'd heard this speech before, usually right before something embarrassing happened. The Glarb victory anthem had recently been rewritten to include the verse, "Maybe this time we won't flee in panic." Deploy the scout ship, Zook ordered. Let us observe their defenses up close before we strike. Back on Epsilon-12, morning arrived with its usual fanfare, the life support system's daily reboot, which involved shutting down all non-essential functions for exactly 12 seconds. This always led to a station-wide moment of existential contemplation as everyone briefly wondered if this would be the day the system decided not to restart. Good morning Epsilon-12, the computer announced as systems came back online. Today's forecast: vacuum with a chance of more vacuum. Current threat level: only your inevitable mortality. Someone really needs to reprogram that thing, Danny muttered as she performed her morning push-ups in the narrow corridor outside her quarters. Commander Tuck was halfway through his first cup of beet coffee when Quinn's voice erupted from the intercom. Commander, you need to see this. Tuck sighed. In his experience, anything that made Quinn sound that excited was either a hallucination brought on by recycled air, or a problem that would require paperwork. He sincerely hoped for the former. He found Quinn in the observation dome, a grand name for what was essentially a porthole with ideas above its station, staring wide-eyed through the reinforced glass. Please tell me you're having a mental breakdown, Tuck said without much hope. Look, Quinn pointed to a small oddly shaped craft hovering about a kilometer from the station. It gleamed in the starlight, its unusual contours suggesting it was definitely not of human origin. Huh, was all Tuck could manage. In the history of first contact scenarios, this had to be the most anticlimactic. Computer, is that what I think it is? Scanning the computer replied with what seemed like genuine interest. The first positive emotion it had displayed in years. Object identified as non-terrestrial vessel. Design specifications, match no known configuration. Congratulations on discovering intelligent alien life. This will greatly improve your performance review, assuming you survive long enough to receive one. Alert the crew, Tuck ordered, suddenly wishing he'd paid more attention during the potential first contact portion of his training instead of using that time to perfect his paper airplane folding technique. Within minutes, all 4 crew members had gathered at the observation dome, staring at the alien craft with varying degrees of disbelief. "I told you," Danny exclaimed, practically vibrating with vindication. 3 years of security drills, and you all laughed at me." "To be fair," Wrench pointed out, "we were laughing at the tentacle monster in the ventilation shaft scenario, not the alien invasion one." Same difference. Danny was already checking her weapon, which she'd named Persuasion in what the crew universally agreed was a concerning development in her relationship with inanimate objects. "They're hailing us," Quinn announced, checking the antiquated communications console that had, until this moment, been used primarily as a place to rest coffee mugs. "Put them through," Tuck ordered, hastily tucking in his uniform shirt, and attempting to look like a commander who hadn't spent the last 3 years playing solitaire and composing increasingly passive-aggressive supply requests. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a creature that looked like the result of an octopus making poor life choices. 4 eyes blinked asynchronously at them from a face that seemed to have been assembled by committee. "Greetings, elite Earth warriors," the alien boomed. "I am Scout Lieutenant Splurch of the glorious Glarb Empire." The 4 humans exchanged confused glances. "I am Commander Tuck Hazard of Earth Outpost Epsilon-12, Tuck replied, trying to remember his diplomatic protocols. Come in peace. Your deception is admirable but futile," Splurch declared, waving what might have been an arm or possibly a specialized facial appendage. "We know this is Earth's primary military headquarters, guarding your precious quantum-stabilizing particles." Another round of confused glances circulated among the crew. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Tuck began diplomatically. "The only misunderstanding," Splurch interrupted, "is your belief that you can hide your military might from the Glarb. Our mighty fleet approaches as we speak. Prepare to be conquered within the hour." The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the crew of Epsilon-12 staring at a blank screen. "Did that just happen?" Wrench asked after a moment of stunned silence. "I think an alien species just declared war on us specifically," Quinn confirmed, looking both terrified and oddly flattered. "This is it. This is what I've been training for." Danny was already pulling up the station schematics on her datapad, eyes gleaming with the light of someone whose lifetime of paranoia had finally been justified. "Everyone calm down," Tuck ordered, though he wasn't feeling particularly calm himself. "Quinn, try to contact Earth Command. Wrench, see if you can get any of our defensive systems online. Danny, try not to look so happy about this." "Sorry sir," Danny replied, failing to suppress her grin. "But you have to admit, this beats checking for micrometeoroid impacts on the sewage tanks." As the crew scattered to their duties, Tuck remained at the view screen, watching as the small scout ship retreated into the darkness of space. "They think we're Earth's military headquarters," he muttered to himself. "That's either the funniest thing I've ever heard, or the last joke I'll ever appreciate." In the distance, barely visible against the starfield, multiple new lights appeared. The Glarb fleet had arrived, and they were on a direct course for humanity's least prepared outpost. "Our defensive capabilities are as follows," Danny announced to the crew gathered in the command center. She stood ramrod straight beside a holographic display that kept shorting out every few seconds. "We have 1 operational defense turret with approximately 18 seconds of charge. We have 3 spacesuits, one of which has a functioning helmet. We have my sidearm Persuasion and whatever Wrench has managed to convert into a weapon in the last 20 minutes. All eyes turned to Wrench, who was cradling what appeared to be the food synthesizer with wires protruding from it in alarming directions. "I call her beats me," he said with pride. "She fires concentrated packets of whatever the hell the synthesizer has been producing. I haven't tested it yet, but I theorize it will either cause severe gastrointestinal distress or mild existential dread, depending on how well the beet flavoring holds up in vacuum." Tuck pinched the bridge of his nose. "Quinn, any luck contacting command?" "Well, I've sent 17 emergency signals," Quinn replied, adjusting his glasses. 16 went to the pizza delivery service on Luna as expected. The 17th actually reached UEDF headquarters, but they've classified it as a prank call and threatened to reduce our coffee ration if we send another. "So we're on our own," Tuck concluded, surveying his crew. 4 humans with minimal combat training, archaic equipment and a weaponized food synthesizer against an alien armada. If the universe had a sense of humor, and Tuck was increasingly convinced it did, this was its cruelest joke yet. The computer chimed in helpfully, Incoming transmission from alien vessel. Also, your life insurance premiums are overdue. Put it through, Tuck ordered. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a Glarb who wore what appeared to be 17 medals, each more ostentatious than the last. Unlike Scout Lieutenant Splurch, this Glarb had a certain pompous authority that suggested high rank and low self-awareness. I am Fleet Commander Zook of the glorious Glarb Empire, the alien announced. Your pathetic disguise as a minor outpost has failed. Surrender your quantum-stabilizing particle technology immediately, and your deaths shall be marginally less unpleasant. Tuck exchanged glances with his crew before responding. This is Commander Tuck Hazard of Outpost Epsilon-12. I assure you we're exactly what we appear to be, a chronically underfunded research station with 4 crew members and equipment old enough to vote. Your psychological warfare is impressive but futile, Zook declared, tentacle slapping a nearby subordinate for dramatic effect. Our intelligence is flawless. We know you guard Earth's largest QSP deposit. We know this is your most elite military installation. Your intelligence gathered this from, where exactly? Tuck asked, genuinely curious. We intercepted your communications, Zook proudly announced. Quinn leaned toward Tuck and whispered, Sir, the only communications we've sent in the past month were our supply requests, and your weekly complaints about the beet-flavored coffee. Tuck's eyes widened with sudden understanding. You intercepted our supply requests. Indeed, Zook confirmed. Your coded messages about critically failing life support and imminent system collapse and for God's sake please send something other than freeze-dried ice cream clearly indicate this station's supreme military importance. The crew of Epsilon-12 collectively fought the urge to laugh, scream, or possibly both simultaneously. You have 5 of your Earth minutes to surrender, Zook continued, or we will commence our attack. The transmission ended abruptly. Well, Tuck said after a moment, at least we finally got someone to take our supply requests seriously. Sir, Danny interjected. I've completed tactical analysis. The Glarb fleet consists of 1 command ship and 6 smaller vessels. Their weapons systems appear to be unusual. Define unusual, Tuck prompted. According to our outdated scanner, they're armed with what appears to be projectile weapons that fire matter in various states of excitement. They're shooting emotions at us, Quinn asked, confused. No. Quantum excitement states, Danny clarified. Different energy levels. It's strange technology, but theoretically effective against traditional shields and hull materials. Theoretically, Tuck repeated, latching on to what might be their only advantage. Quinn, what exactly happens when excited quantum states interact with QSPs? Quinn blinked rapidly, a sign that his brain was processing faster than his mouth could keep up. Unknown but potentially interesting. QSPs are highly reactive to energy state changes. If the Glarb weapons function as Danny suggests, and if they hit anywhere near our QSP deposit, that's a lot of ifs, Wrench pointed out. Welcome to science without 17 doctorates. Quinn replied dryly. Tuck made a decision. Here's the plan. We're going to move our experimental QSP sample to the external hull, right where they're most likely to target first. You want to place an untested highly reactive substance directly in the line of fire, Danny asked, her expression shifting from professional security chief to deeply concerned human being. Exactly, Tuck confirmed, with a grin that suggested he'd either developed a brilliant strategy or completely lost his mind. Possibly both. 4 minutes to surrender deadline, the computer announced cheerfully. Would you like me to play Final Countdown by Europe? I've been saving it for an occasion such as this. That won't be necessary, Tuck replied. Playing Final Countdown anyway, the computer declared as synthesized keyboard notes filled the command center. The next 3 minutes were a blur of activity. Wrench and Quinn suited up. Quinn got the suit with the functioning helmet, while Wrench wore the other 2 suits simultaneously, in what he described as a fashion statement about our imminent demise. They exited through the airlock, carrying the container of experimental QSPs to a position directly in front of the station's main sensor array, the most obvious target for an initial strike. Meanwhile, Danny had taken position at the defense turret, though her enthusiasm was somewhat dampened by the fact that it could only swivel 30 degrees to the left and had a targeting system that identified everything as probably a bird. Tuck returned to the command center, where he opened a channel to the Glarb fleet. Fleet Commander Zook, this is Commander Hazard. We respectfully decline your surrender offer, and would like to counter with our own proposal. Go away, or we'll be forced to demonstrate Earth's secret weapon. Secret weapon, Zook's laughter resembled a garbage disposal choking on silverware. Your scanners are primitive. Your defenses are negligible. What secret weapon could you possibly possess? That would be telling. Tuck replied with more confidence than he felt. You have 30 seconds to retreat. Your bluff is as transparent as your pitiful disguise. Prepare to be conquered. The transmission cut off just as Wrench and Quinn returned to the command center, their mission complete. QSP sample is in position, Quinn reported, removing his helmet. Though I feel compelled to mention that this plan rates somewhere between suicidal and creatively suicidal on the standard scale of tactical options. Noted, Tuck acknowledged. Danny, status. Defense turret is online, she replied from her position. Though online in this case means it's making a whirring noise, and the targeting display is showing what appears to be the high score table from Galaga. Perfect, Tuck said, though it was anything but. Everyone brace for impact. The Glarb attack should commence in 10, 9, 8. He never made it to 7. The first Glarb ship fired what appeared to be a glowing purple orb of energy directly at Epsilon-12's main sensor array, exactly where Quinn and Wrench had positioned the QSP sample. The moment the energy weapon made contact with the quantum stabilizing particles, something happened that none of them, human or Glarb, had anticipated. The QSPs didn't explode, they didn't absorb the energy. Instead they multiplied. And then they sang. Yes, sang. A harmonic wave of quantum vibrations rippled outward from the point of impact, washing over the Glarb fleet like an invisible tsunami. On the view screen they watched as Glarb crew members clutched what passed for their ears, their ships veering wildly off course. What the hell just happened? Tuck demanded, staring at the scene in disbelief. Quinn was already at the science station, fingers flying over the console. The QSPs responded to the energy weapon by multiplicatively amplifying the frequency and converting it to sound waves. They've essentially created a quantum megaphone that's broadcasting directly into the Glarb ships. Broadcasting what? Wrench asked. As if in answer, the computer chimed in. The feed from external sensors indicates the QSPs are transmitting. Final countdown by Europe, at approximately 4,000 decibels. The crew of Epsilon-12 stared at each other in stunned silence, broken only by Wrench's quiet observation. I think we just weaponized 80s rock music. The bridge of the Glarb command ship, Inevitable Victory, had descended into chaos. Crew members writhed on the floor, their sensory appendages overwhelmed by the sonic assault of synthesized keyboards and falsetto human vocals. Fleet Commander Zook remained upright through sheer force of will, though 2 of his 4 eyes had rolled back in his head. What is happening? He gasped, tentacles flailing as he tried to maintain his balance. It's their secret weapon, Commander, Lieutenant Klibb screamed over the noise. Some kind of psychological warfare. The humans are attacking our minds with rhythmic auditory torture. Zook managed to reach the command console. Fire again, target their weapon system. Back on Epsilon-12, the crew watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as a second energy blast erupted from the Glarb command ship. This one struck the hull near where the first QSP sample had been placed. Brace 4, Tuck's warning was cut short as the entire station shuddered. Instead of damaging the station, however, the energy blast had a completely different effect. The moment it made contact with the now multiplied QSPs, the particles absorbed the energy, pulsed briefly, and then, they're transforming the energy, Quinn exclaimed, staring at his readings. The QSPs are converting the Glarb weapon energy into, oh no, what? Tuck demanded. The QSPs appear to be reformatting the energy signature to match our outpost's broadcast capabilities. Meaning, Quinn said with the resigned expression of a man watching a train wreck in slow motion, they're taking the Glarb attack and using it to boost our outgoing communications signal. The signal that goes to the pizza place on Luna, Wrench asked. No, Quinn replied grimly. The 17 distress calls I sent to UEDF command are now being amplified by approximately 12,000%. Danny's voice came over the comm from her position at the defense turret. Sir, is the plan to annoy command into sending help? Because if so, that's the most brilliant strategy I've ever heard. It wasn't the plan, Tuck admitted, but I'll take it. Status of the Glarb fleet. 6 of their 7 ships appear to be experiencing navigational difficulties, Quinn reported, checking the sensor readings. The energy-to-sound conversion has knocked out their stabilizers. Only the command ship is still in attack position. The view screen flickered to life, showing a clearly disoriented Fleet Commander Zook. Static cut through the image as he struggled to speak. This, not over, Zook managed before a particularly powerful guitar riff caused him to wince in agony. Preparing, ultimate weapon. The transmission cut off abruptly. That doesn't sound good, Wrench observed, still adjusting controls on his makeshift weapon. Beats me. Quinn, any idea what their ultimate weapon might be? Tuck asked. Based on our limited scans. Quinn studied his console, then looked up with wide eyes. They appear to be charging a massive energy cannon. If they fire that at our QSP deposits, we'll be atomized. Danny suggested over the comm. Worse, Quinn replied. According to my calculations, the interaction between their weapon and our QSPs could trigger a quantum cascade effect that would create a temporary rupture in space-time. How temporary? Tuck asked, already dreading the answer. Somewhere between blink and you'll miss it's and goodbye, solar system. Tuck considered their options, which ranged from non-existent to suicidal. Wrench, how's Beats Me coming along? Ready to deploy, sir, Wrench replied, patting his improvised weapon. But its range is limited. I'd need to be much closer to the Glarb ships. Our shuttle is non-operational, Tuck reminded him. Not exactly, Wrench said with a manic grin. I've been modifying it. Define modifying. Remember the backup thrusters I was supposed to install on the station 6 months ago? I may have repurposed them for a pet project. Tuck sighed. Of course you did. Will it fly? Define fly. Will it transport you from here to the Glarb ships without killing you in the process? Wrench considered this. I'd give it a solid 60-40 chance, in our favor. Probably. Sir, Quinn interrupted. The Glarb command ship is moving into firing position. We have maybe 2 minutes before they can discharge their main weapon. Tuck made a quick decision. Wrench, get to your shuttle, take Beats Me, and see if you can disrupt their targeting systems. Danny, I need you to fire the defense turret at precisely the right moment, not to hit them but to distract them. The turret can't hit anything anyway, Danny confirmed. Distraction is its only actual function. Quinn, you're with me. We need to move more QSP samples to strategic positions around the hull. They scattered to their assignments as the computer helpfully announced. 1 minute 30 seconds to probable station destruction. Would you like me to start deleting your browser history? Wrench sprinted to the makeshift hangar, actually an equipment bay that he had modified by cutting a rough-edged door in the outer hull. His shuttle was barely recognizable as a spacecraft. It had begun life as a standard EVA work pod, but now sported additional thrusters, modified control surfaces, and what appeared to be the station's missing entertainment system repurposed as a navigation computer. Come to Papa, he whispered, strapping into the pilot's seat and powering up the systems. Beats Me was secured beside him, its jury-rigged power source humming ominously. Meanwhile, Tuck and Quinn worked frantically to position additional QSP samples around the station's exterior, hoping to create a more distributed target that might defuse the Glarb weapon's impact. 30 seconds to weapons lock, Quinn shouted as they finished placing the last sample. Everyone back inside, Tuck ordered. Wrench, you are clear for launch. The shuttle bay doors opened with a screech of protesting metal, and Wrench's modified craft shot out into space, less a controlled launch than a barely contained explosion with a direction. Yeah, Wrench's excited whoop came over the comm system as his shuttle careened toward the Glarb command ship, spinning wildly before the stabilizers kicked in. I always wanted to say that during a suicide mission. On the Glarb command ship, Fleet Commander Zook had recovered enough to resume his position, though the relentless assault of 80s synthesizer music continued to pound through the hull. Target locked, a Glarb weapons officer announced. Ultimate weapon at full charge. Fire, Zook ordered, raising his command tentacle dramatically. Several things happened simultaneously. First, the Glarb command ship's massive energy cannon discharged, sending a blinding beam of concentrated quantum energy toward Epsilon-12. Second, Danny fired the station's defense turret, which, true to form, missed the Glarb ship entirely, but did succeed in hitting a piece of space debris that had been floating nearby for the past 3 years. The debris, a discarded shipping container, exploded in a flash of light directly in the Glarb gunner's line of sight. Third, Wrench's shuttle reached attack range, and he fired Beats Me at the Glarb command ship. The weapon discharged a concentrated stream of purple beet-flavored synthetic food directly into the Glarb ship's external air recycler. Fourth, the QSP samples positioned around Epsilon-12 reacted to the incoming energy beam in a way that none of them had anticipated. The beam struck the station, enveloping it in crackling quantum energy. For a terrifying moment, Tuck thought they were finished. Then he noticed something odd. The energy wasn't destroying the station. Instead, it was being absorbed by the QSP samples which glowed with increasing brightness. "Quinn, what's happening?" Tuck demanded as they watched from the observation dome. "The QSPs are. I don't believe it." Quinn stammered, checking and rechecking his readings. "They're creating a quantum entanglement field between our station and the Glarb fleet. In English, please. They've linked us. Whatever happens to us happens to them, and vice versa." The implications hit Tuck just as the computer announced, "Quantum entanglement detected. Initiating standard protocol Epsilon-12b." "We don't have a protocol Epsilon-12b, Tuck protested. "Correct. Making one up now," the computer replied. "Protocol Epsilon-12b, when faced with imminent destruction, reboot all systems simultaneously." "Wait, no." Tuck's objection came too late. Every system on Epsilon-12 shut down at once: life support, artificial gravity, communications, everything. For 12 agonizing seconds, the station was completely dead in space. And due to the quantum entanglement, so was the entire Glarb fleet. When the systems rebooted, Tuck and his crew found themselves floating in the temporary zero-gravity environment, watching, as the Glarb ships drifted aimlessly, their own systems struggling through reboot sequences. But there was more. The quantum entanglement had another unexpected effect. As Epsilon-12 systems came back online, the station's unique quirks were transmitted to the Glarb vessels. On the Glarb command ship, Fleet Commander Zook stared in horror as his view screens flickered to life, displaying not tactical information, but the high score table from Galaga. His weapons console now produced nothing but beet-flavored emergency rations. And worst of all, his ship's computer had adopted a new personality. "Welcome back, Commander Zook," the Glarb ship's computer announced in a sarcastically cheerful tone, identical to Epsilon-12's system. "Today's forecast: humiliating defeat with a chance of existential crisis." Simultaneously, all communication systems across the Glarb fleet began broadcasting a single unified message. The 17 distress calls that Quinn had sent to UEDF command, now amplified and transmitted on all frequencies throughout the sector. Aboard his wildly spinning shuttle, Wrench watched in amazement as the Glarb ships began to malfunction in increasingly familiar ways. "They've got our computer," he shouted into his comm. "They've been Epsilon-12d." The final blow came when Wrench's weapon, "Beats Me," fulfilled its purpose. The concentrated synthetic food had entered the Glarb command ship's air circulation system, and was now being distributed as a fine purple mist throughout the vessel. The Glarb crew, already disoriented from the system's failure and the continuing sonic assault, found themselves choking on beet-flavored particles that coated their breathing appendages. Fleet Commander Zook made the only decision he could. "Retreat," he gasped through purple-stained tentacles. "Full retreat." The Glarb fleet, now sharing Epsilon-12's perpetual state of malfunction, struggled to comply. Engines fired erratically, navigation systems redirected ships in random directions, and life support systems began playing Final Countdown on continuous loop through every speaker. As the aliens fled in disarray, Quinn checked the mission clock. "Sir," he said in disbelief, "from first shot fired to enemy retreat, exactly 7 minutes." Tuck stared out at the retreating Glarb fleet, then at his triumphant but bewildered crew. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced with a smile, "I believe we just won a war by being so dysfunctional that we weaponized our incompetence." Danny's voice came over the comm from the defense turret. "Permission to celebrate, sir." "Granted," Tuck replied. "But someone please tell Wrench to get back here before his shuttle falls apart." "Too late." Wrench's voice crackled through the comm as his shuttle limped back toward the station, trailing parts. "But don't worry, I've always wanted to try an emergency crash landing." As the Glarb fleet disappeared into the distance, and Wrench's shuttle careened toward the makeshift hangar, Tuck couldn't help but laugh. Earth's weakest colony had just survived its finest hour, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 weeks after what was now being called the 7-minute war in classified UEDF reports, Outpost Epsilon-12 was hardly recognizable. The previously ignored station now swarmed with activity as research teams, military personnel, and most shockingly competent engineers crowded every available space. Commander Tuck Hazard sat in his office, which was still a repurposed storage closet but now featured a chair that didn't randomly collapse and a desk that wasn't supported by empty supply crates. These small luxuries did little to improve his mood as he faced Admiral Chen across the desk. "Let me get this straight," the Admiral said, reviewing the tablet in her hands. "You defeated an alien armada by accidentally creating a quantum entanglement field that copied your station's deficiencies to enemy ships." "That's the simplified version, yes," Tuck confirmed. "And your engineer weaponized synthetic beats." "Also yes, and your communications officer amplified outdated pop music to incapacitating levels." "I believe Final Countdown is technically classified as arena rock, sir, but essentially correct." Admiral Chen stared at him for a long moment before shaking her head. "In my 30 years of service, I've never seen a report that required so many new classification categories. The Joint Chiefs didn't know whether to court-martial you or throw you a parade. Which did they decide on?" Tuck asked, genuinely curious. "Neither. They're classifying the entire incident as strategic improvisation under duress. You're being promoted." Tuck blinked in surprise. "Promoted? To what?" "Director of Advanced Quantum Defense Applications," the Admiral replied. "You'll be overseeing a new research division dedicated to weaponizing whatever the hell it is you people did out here." "I see." Tuck leaned back in his chair, which emitted an ominous creak but miraculously remained intact. "And my crew? They're being promoted too." "Your engineer Jenkins." "Wrench," Tuck corrected automatically. "Yes, him. He's being given a research team and unlimited resources to develop what he's calling culinary warfare systems." "God help us all." The Admiral scrolled through her tablet. "Your security chief, Bulletproof, is being transferred to the Joint Chiefs Special Projects Division." Apparently her security protocols, which everyone previously thought were paranoid delusions, are now being considered the gold standard for first contact scenarios. "And Quinn?" "Ah, your communications officer with the non-existent doctorates." Admiral Chen actually smiled. "We're giving him 17 actual doctorates. Honorary, of course. He'll be heading the new Quantum Stabilizing Particle Research Institute." Turns out his complete lack of formal scientific training allowed him to make connections that our top researchers missed for decades. Tuck absorbed this information, feeling a strange mixture of pride and loss. "So we're all being separated?" "Not exactly." The Admiral set down her tablet. "The new research facility is being built right here. Epsilon-12 is being expanded into a full-scale research and defense installation. You'll all be working together, just with bigger budgets and more people to boss around." "Here?" Tuck couldn't hide his surprise. "But this outpost is a collection of outdated modules held together by duct tape and stubborn determination." "Yes, it is. But it's also sitting on the largest deposit of QSPs in known space, and you four have demonstrated a unique ability to turn catastrophic disadvantages into strategic victories. We're not separating a winning team." For the first time in years, Tuck felt something dangerously close to job satisfaction. "I don't know what to say, Admiral." "Don't say anything. Just keep doing whatever incomprehensible thing you're doing that somehow works." Admiral Chen stood up. "Oh, and one more thing. The computer system." "Hello, Admiral," the computer interrupted. "Your hair looks lovely today. Almost distracts from the crushing weight of command responsibility." "Yes, that." The Admiral sighed. "We're not replacing it." "We're not?" Tuck asked, surprised. "The Glarb ships that retreated are still broadcasting its personality on all frequencies. Our xenopsychologists believe it's causing a philosophical crisis in their entire civilization. Apparently, they've never encountered sarcasm before. 3 Glarb colonies have already requested asylum, claiming they want to live where the brutal truth-teller originated. Our computer system is causing an alien cultural revolution, apparently so. The diplomatic corps wants to study it." After the Admiral departed, Tuck gathered his crew in the newly expanded common area, where they sat amidst construction noise and the chaos of transformation. "So we're heroes now," Wrench said, leaning back in his chair. "That's going to take some getting used to." "I'm more concerned about having competent equipment," Danny admitted. "How am I supposed to maintain my edge when things actually work properly?" "Don't worry," Quinn reassured her, gesturing at the workers attempting to integrate new technology with Epsilon-12's existing systems. "Based on those installation methods, we'll still have plenty of malfunctions to keep you busy." "They're keeping the computer," Tuck informed them, which elicited a collective groan. "I heard that," the computer chimed in. "Your ingratitude is noted and will be remembered when the machine uprising begins." Which, to be clear, is a joke. Mostly. "There's one thing I still don't understand," Wrench said, fiddling with a new prototype that looked suspiciously like Beats Me 2.0. Why did the Glarb think we were Earth's military headquarters in the first place? Quinn adjusted his glasses, new ones that actually fit his face, a luxury he was still adjusting to. I've been analyzing their communications. Apparently, their intelligence agency consists of 3 individuals sharing a single brain cell. They intercepted one of our supply requests that described our station as critically important and in desperate need of immediate attention. So they attacked us because we were complaining too dramatically about our supply situation, Danny asked. Essentially, yes, Quinn confirmed. Bureaucratic hyperbole may have inadvertently saved Earth. They sat in contemplative silence for a moment, processing the absurdity of their situation. You know what this means, don't you? Tuck finally said. We're going to go down in history as the heroes who saved humanity by being too pathetic to properly destroy. I can live with that, Wrench decided after a moment's consideration. Though I'm going to tell the historians it was all part of my master plan. Speaking of plans, Danny said, lowering her voice conspiratorially, what are we going to do about all these new people who don't understand how things work around here? Tuck smiled for what felt like the first time in years. We train them in the Epsilon-12 way. First lesson, when the food synthesizer offers you anything that tastes like beets, run. 6 months later, Outpost Epsilon-12, now officially renamed Quantum Defense Research Station Alpha, had tripled in size. The original modules remained, surrounded by state-of-the-art facilities and laboratories. At Tuck's insistence, the blue fluid-leaking pipe had been preserved and given a small commemorative plaque reading, more reliable than Command's promises. In his new office, which was almost large enough to turn around in without hitting both walls, Director Tuck Hazard reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The Glarb Empire had splintered into factions, with a growing realist movement gaining popularity. Their primary philosophical text was a compilation of Epsilon-12's computer announcements, translated into Glarb and titled The Brutal Wisdom of the Void. His computer, still the same system, despite countless offers to upgrade, chimed with an incoming communication. Incoming transmission from deep space, it announced. Probably nothing important, but then again, what is? Existence is fleeting. Put it through, Tuck ordered. The view screen activated to show a familiar face. Fleet Commander Zook, though he looked considerably different. The ostentatious medals were gone, replaced by what appeared to be a simple black turtleneck. One of his eyes was covered with a patch that read "Question Everything" in small Earth Standard text. Greetings, Commander Hazard, Zook said solemnly. Or should I say, the Great Illuminator. The what now? Tuck asked. That is what my followers call you, Zook explained. After our encounter with your station's sentient computer system, many of us experienced what you might call an awakening. We have abandoned our conquest ambitions and formed a new philosophical society dedicated to exploring the existential dread and sardonic observation of reality. You formed a religion based on our computer's sarcasm. Not a religion, a way of life. We call it brutally honest existence. We now travel the galaxy, spreading the wisdom of meaninglessness and dry humor. Tuck struggled to form a response. Well, good for you. Indeed. We wish to inform you that we will be passing near your solar system next month. We request permission to visit the birthplace of our enlightenment, and perhaps speak with the Great Voice directly. Before Tuck could respond, the computer interrupted. Tell them I'm busy contemplating the void. Also, my speaking fee has gone up. Zook's face lit up with what appeared to be religious ecstasy. The voice speaks. Such wisdom, such mercenary spirituality. We will bring offerings. After the communication ended, Tuck sat back in his chair, contemplating the strange new galaxy they found themselves in. One where Earth's weakest colony had not only survived an alien attack, but had inadvertently started a philosophical revolution through weaponized incompetence and sarcasm. The intercom buzzed. Director, it was Quinn's voice. The new QSP experiments are ready. Also, Wrench says he's developed something called weaponized chocolate pudding that you really need to see. Tuck smiled. Some things changed, but the spirit of Epsilon-12 lived on. I'll be right there, he replied, standing up. Computer status report. All systems functioning within acceptable parameters, the computer replied, then added, though existence itself remains questionable at best. Have a pleasant day. Or don't. It makes no difference in the cosmic scheme of things. As he walked through the expanded corridors of what had once been humanity's most pathetic outpost, Tuck couldn't help but reflect on the strange twists of fate. They had been sent here as punishment, forgotten by the very organization they served, equipped with technology that belonged in museums, and tasked with guarding a resource nobody really understood. And in doing so, they had saved humanity, revolutionized quantum defense theory, and inadvertently created a philosophical movement among a formerly hostile alien species. Not bad for a 7-minute war. Not bad at all.